The stars had always been Zara Nightwind's first love, but she never expected them to deliver her second. She floated weightlessly in the observation pod of Lunar Research Station 7, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface as she tracked the movement of a distant nebula. At 19, Zara was the youngest student ever accepted into Earth's Advanced Stellar Cartography program, though she often felt more at home among the constellations than among her fellow humans. "Zara, you've been up there for 8 hours straight," came the concerned voice of her supervisor through the comm system. "The cafeteria closes in 20 minutes. Just 5 more minutes." "Professor Chun Torres," she replied, not taking her eyes off the swirling cosmic dance before her. "The stellar alignment is perfect right now, and I'm getting readings that could revolutionize our understanding of gravitational wave propagation." What she didn't mention was that the solitude among the stars felt more comforting than the crowded corridors below. Up here, surrounded by the infinite tapestry of space, she could forget about being the awkward genius who'd skipped 3 grades and never quite fit in anywhere. The nebula pulsed with ethereal beauty, its gases shifting in patterns that seemed almost alive. Zara adjusted the sensors to capture a particularly interesting electromagnetic signature when something impossible happened. A ship materialized directly in front of her viewport, not emerged from hyperspace, not decloaked, materialized as if the universe had simply decided a sleek, silver vessel should exist in that exact spot at that exact moment. Zara's breath caught in her throat. The ship was unlike anything in Earth's databases, all flowing curves and organic lines, as if it had been grown rather than built. Bioluminescent patterns pulsed along its hull in hypnotic spirals, and she could swear she felt a strange resonance, like a song just below the threshold of hearing. Then the tractor beam engaged. "Emergency protocols activating," the station's AI announced with maddening calm. "Hull breach detected in observation pod 7. Initiating emergency containment," but there was no breach. Instead, Zara felt herself being drawn toward the alien vessel, the observation pod's emergency systems, somehow convinced she was floating free in space. The sensation was oddly gentle, like being cradled by invisible hands. Her last coherent thought before the world dissolved into swirling light was that she really should have eaten dinner first. Consciousness returned slowly, accompanied by the soft hum of unfamiliar technology and the scent of something floral that reminded her of jasmine. Zara opened her eyes to find herself lying on what appeared to be a bed made of crystallized starlight, translucent, but somehow perfectly comfortable. "Please don't be alarmed," came a voice, speaking perfect English with an accent that seemed to carry the music of solar winds. "I mean you no harm." Zara sat up carefully, her head spinning slightly, and found herself face to face with the most beautiful being she had ever seen. He was humanoid but taller, with skin that held a subtle iridescent quality like pearl dust. His hair was silver white and moved as if underwater, and his eyes were the deep blue-purple of nebular gas, with tiny points of light that looked like actual stars. "You're Altarian," she whispered, recognizing the species from the limited first contact files that had been declassified after the initial diplomatic meetings 3 years ago. "But your people never travel this far into human space." "I'm Captain Theron Vex," he said, inclining his head in what she assumed was a formal greeting. His expression was pained, almost embarrassed. "And you are absolutely correct. I should not be here, and I certainly should not have." "Collected you? Collected?" Zara raised an eyebrow, surprised to find she wasn't afraid. Perhaps it was the genuine distress in his musical voice, or perhaps it was the way he held himself. Clearly powerful, but somehow gentle. "Is that what we're calling kidnapping these days?" A flush of deeper iridescence crossed Theron's cheeks. "It was an accident. My navigation system malfunctioned during a routine stellar survey. When I attempted to recalibrate using your station's gravitational readings, The quantum resonance field somehow locked on to the most concentrated source of navigational data, which was me. Zara realized. I was running deep scans on stellar positions when you appeared. The system interpreted you as a navigational beacon and retrieved you for integration into the ship's database. He ran a hand through his flowing hair. I've never seen anything like it. My ship seems to believe you're a piece of essential equipment. Despite the bizarre situation, Zara found herself smiling. Well, I have been called a computer more than once, though usually it's not meant as a compliment. Something shifted in Theron's expression, surprise, perhaps, or appreciation for her humor in the face of interstellar abduction. You're remarkably calm for someone who has just been accidentally kidnapped by an alien. I've been dreaming of meeting other species since I was 5, Zara admitted, though I imagined it happening under more official circumstances. Maybe with actual pants on. She glanced down at her sleep clothes, soft gray leggings and an oversized sweater with a cartoon galaxy on it. The flush in Theron's cheeks deepened. I can provide you with proper clothing. My ship's fabricators can create garments suitable for your physiology. That would be helpful. Thank you. Zara stood, testing her balance on the strange crystalline floor. So, Captain Vex, what happens now? Do you call your embassy and arrange for my return? Do I get to see your ship first? Because I have to tell you, your navigation system is the most sophisticated piece of technology I've ever encountered. Theron's starlight eyes widened. You understand the navigation system? Well, understand might be too strong a word, Zara hedged. But I recognize the mathematical principles. Your people use quantum entangled stellar positioning, don't you? Instead of measuring distance and direction from fixed points, you measure the resonant frequencies between gravitationally linked systems. That is exactly correct. Theron stared at her with something approaching awe. You determined this from passive observation? I've been studying gravitational wave interactions for 3 years. Your ship's readings are unlike anything we've achieved on Earth, but the underlying physics are elegant, almost beautiful. A soft chiming filled the air, and Theron's expression shifted to one of concern. My ship's proximity alarms, he explained. There's a stellar storm approaching, a massive solar flare from the nearby star. We need to leave this area immediately, but double quotes. But your navigation system is malfunctioned, Zara finished. How bad is it? I can achieve basic propulsion, but precise positioning is impossible. And with the electromagnetic interference from the storm, manual navigation would be double quote. He hesitated. Suicide, Zara said bluntly. The radiation alone would fry your sensors. She moved to what appeared to be a control interface, its symbols shifting and changing as she approached. May I? Theron nodded, stepping aside. The moment Zara's fingers touched the interface, the symbols stabilized, and she felt a strange resonance, as if the ship were welcoming her presence. Fascinating, she murmured, her eyes scanning the data streams. Your ship doesn't just calculate navigation, it feels it. The quantum field interactions are processed almost like emotions. She looked up at Theron. I think I can help, but you'll need to trust me. The storm will reach us in 10 minutes, Theron said quietly. If we're caught in open space, then we better not be. Zara's fingers flew across the interface, her understanding of human gravitational theory combining with the intuitive logic of Alterian technology. I need you to engage the drive on my mark. Don't think about where we're going. Just feel for the path of least resistance. Feel? Your people navigate by resonance, right? Like finding harmony in a cosmic symphony. I'm going to give you the melody. Zara's hands moved in complex patterns, and the ship's interface responded with cascading waves of light. Now, Theron's hands joined hers on the controls, and suddenly the ship sang. Not audibly, but with a vibration that seemed to resonate in their bones. Zara felt the moment when Theron understood, when his natural Altarian sensitivity to quantum frequencies merged with their mathematical precision. They moved through space like dancers, weaving between gravitational currents, using the approaching storm's own energy to slingshot them to safety. When they finally stopped, both were breathing hard, their hands still touching on the control interface. That was ... double quotes Theron began. Incredible, Zara finished, looking up at him. I've never felt anything like it. It was like the ship was singing to us. They stood in the soft glow of the ship's bioluminescent systems, suddenly aware of how close they were standing, how their hands were still joined on the controls. Theron's eyes held depths that seemed to reflect actual starlight, and Zara felt something shift in her chest, a resonance that had nothing to do with navigation. I should contact your people, Theron said softly, though he made no move to step away. Arrange for your return. Yes, Zara agreed, equally softly. You should. Neither of them moved. The ship's systems hummed quietly around them, and somewhere in the distance, the stellar storm raged harmlessly past, unable to touch the small pocket of space where a human girl and an Altarian captain had discovered that some connections transcend species. 3 days had passed since the stellar storm, and Zara was beginning to understand why Altarian ships were considered living entities. The vessel seemed to anticipate her needs, adjusting lighting when she worked late, providing the perfect temperature, even generating what tasted remarkably like chocolate when she mentioned missing Earth food. Your ship likes me, she observed, settling into the observation alcove where she and Theron had taken to sharing their meals. The transparent walls offered a breathtaking view of the Andromeda spiral, its arms stretching across space like brushstrokes of light. Theron looked up from his meal, a collection of crystalline fruits that chimed softly when touched. Ships don't have preferences, he said, though his tone suggested he wasn't entirely convinced. The bioneural networks simply optimize for crew efficiency. Then, explain why it keeps playing those haunting melodies when I'm working on the stellar charts, Zara challenged, taking a bite of what appeared to be starlight, but tasted like honey and cinnamon. And don't tell me those aren't Altarian love songs, the iridescent flush that had become so familiar over the past few days colored Theron's cheeks. How do you know about Altarian music? I've been accessing your cultural databases, Zara admitted. Your ship seemed eager to share. Did you know your people compose symphonies based on the gravitational harmonics of binary star systems? It's beautiful. The mathematics alone are poetry. Theron set down his eating utensil, a graceful curve of what looked like condensed moonlight. Zara, there are things about my culture you should understand. Things that make this situation ... complicated. More complicated than being accidentally kidnapped by a navigation malfunction. She meant it lightly, but something in Theron's expression made her grow serious. What is it? Before he could answer, the ship's communication system activated with a melodic chime that sounded distinctly urgent. A holographic image materialized in the center of their dining area. A woman who was unmistakably related to Theron, though her features carried an authority that spoke of high rank and serious responsibility. Brother, the woman said, and her voice carried the same musical quality as Theron's, though tempered with steel. Imagine my surprise when I received reports that your research vessel had gone missing for 4 days. Kess. Theron rose from his seat, inclining his head formally. I can explain. I'm sure you can. The woman's gaze shifted to Zara, and her eyes, the same starlight blue as Theron's, widened slightly. And you must be the human that our long-range sensors detected aboard my brother's ship. I am Ambassador Kess Altara of the Diplomatic Corps. Zara stood as well, uncertain of the proper protocol, but determined to make a good impression. I'm Zara Nightwind. It's an honor to meet you, Ambassador. Though I should mention that I'm here entirely by accident. An accident that has kept you in the company of my brother for 4 days, Kess noted, and something in her tone suggested layers of meaning that Zara didn't understand. Theron, we need to discuss this privately. Anything you need to say can be said in front of Zara, Theron replied, and Zara felt something warm unfurl in her chest at his protective tone. She's been invaluable in helping repair the navigation systems. Kess's eyebrows rose. A human working with our technology? She's brilliant, Theron said simply. Her understanding of gravitational mechanics rivals our best scientists. Perhaps exceeds them in some areas. That's not the point. And you know it. Kess's image flickered slightly as she adjusted her transmission. Theron, do you remember the Codex of Separation? Zara watched as Theron's expression grew pained. Of course I do. For the sake of our guest, perhaps you could elaborate, Kess suggested, though her tone made it clear it wasn't really a suggestion. Theron was quiet for a long moment, his hands clenched at his sides. When he spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. The Codex of Separation was established after our first contact with other species 300 years ago. It prohibits deep personal relationships between Altarians and non-Altarians. Why? Zara asked, though part of her already dreaded the answer. Because, Kess replied, such relationships have historically led to cultural contamination, political complications, and in some cases, interstellar conflicts. The Codex protects both species involved. Cultural contamination? Zara felt a flash of anger. Is that what you call learning about each other? I call it dangerous, Kess said firmly. My brother's reports indicate he's been sharing not just our technology, but our art, our music, our most sacred traditions. And you've been reciprocating with human cultural elements. Do you understand what this creates? Understanding? Zara suggested. Friendship? The basis for peaceful relations? Attachment, Kess corrected. Emotional bonds that compromise judgment and violate the natural order. Altarians are empathically linked to quantum frequencies. Humans are not. Any attempt at deep connection causes psychological stress to our people. Zara glanced at Theron, who was staring at his hands. Is that true? Am I causing you psychological stress? No, Theron said quietly. The opposite, actually. I've never felt more ... centered. Kess's image sharpened, her concern evident. Brother, that's exactly the problem. You're describing the early stages of resonance bonding. If this continues, you could suffer permanent neurological damage when she returns to her own species. What if she doesn't return? Theron asked, so quietly that Zara almost missed it. The silence that followed stretched across light years, heavy with implications. Zara's heart hammered against her ribs as she processed what he'd just suggested. Theron, Kess said carefully, you cannot be serious. A human cannot survive long-term exposure to our ship environments. The quantum radiation alone would. Actually, Zara interrupted. I've been monitoring my biological responses since I arrived. Your ship's systems have been adapting to protect me. I've never felt healthier. That's because the ship is responding to Theron's unconscious need to keep you safe, Kess explained. It's further evidence of developing resonance bonding. This cannot continue. Theron finally looked up, and Zara was startled by the pain in his starlight eyes. What are you ordering me to do? I'm not ordering anything, Kess said gently. I'm asking you to remember your duties to our people and to consider what's best for both of you. I've already contacted Earth's diplomatic service. They're sending a representative to arrange for Miss Nightwind's return. When? Zara asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know. 3 days. I'll be accompanying them personally to ensure proper protocols are followed. After Kess ended the transmission, Zara and Theron sat in silence, the distant stars offering no comfort. Finally, Zara spoke. Resonance bonding. That's what's happening between us, isn't it? I don't know, Theron admitted. I've never experienced anything like this. When you touch the ship's controls, I feel your thoughts. When you laugh, something in my chest resonates like struck crystal. When you're near, the quantum frequencies around me seem to harmonize. Is it dangerous? For you, I mean? Theron's laugh was hollow. According to everything I've been taught, yes. Resonance bonding with a non-Altarian should cause dissonance, psychological fracturing. Instead, I feel complete. Zara reached across the table, taking his hand in hers. The moment their skin touched, she felt it, a subtle thrumming, like standing too close to a massive tuning fork. But instead of discomfort, it felt like coming home. Maybe, she said carefully, the problem isn't that we're different species. Maybe the problem is that your people have never tried to understand what happens when the differences complement each other instead of clash. Codex exists for good reasons, Theron said, though he made no move to pull his hand away. There have been tragedies. Altarians who bonded with incompatible species and suffered complete neural collapse. But what if compatibility isn't about species? Zara asked. What if it's about something deeper? The way we both hear music and mathematics, see poetry and stellar mechanics? You're suggesting we ignore thousands of years of tradition and law based on a feeling? I'm suggesting, Zara said, squeezing his hand gently, that maybe some connections are worth the risk. They spent the next 3 days in a strange, suspended state, knowing their time was limited, but unable to stop themselves from growing closer. Zara helped Theron fine-tune his ship's navigation systems, her human intuition complementing his Altarian quantum sensitivity in ways that produced results neither could achieve alone. Theron taught her to read Altarian stellar poetry, the way his people encoded emotional truth in the mathematical relationships between celestial bodies. He showed her how to feel the ship's bioneural network, to sense the gentle intelligence that guided their journey through space. Your ship doesn't just like me, Zara realized on their last night together, as they floated in the observation dome, watching a nebula birth new stars. It recognizes me. Like I belong here. Ships don't have opinions, Theron said automatically, but his voice lacked conviction. This one does. Zara touched the wall, and bioluminescent patterns responded to her presence, spiraling outward in complex fractals. It's been learning from both of us, creating something new. Zara, Theron's voice was soft, pained. Tomorrow you go home. Do I? She turned to face him, seeing her own uncertainty reflected in his starlight eyes. Where is home exactly? The research station where I spent most of my time alone? Earth, where I've always been too strange to fit in? Or here, where for the first time in my life, I feel like someone truly understands me? You can't stay, Theron said, though it sounded like he was trying to convince himself as much as her. The Codex, Zara interrupted, was written by people who never imagined this. Us, what we are together. Before Theron could respond, the ship's communication system chimed again. This time, the hologram that appeared was human, an older woman in a formal diplomatic uniform. Miss Nightwind, the woman said, I am Minister Grace Chun Torres from Earth's Department of Interstellar Affairs. We'll be arriving tomorrow to facilitate your return. Zara's heart sank, but she managed to keep her voice steady. Thank you, Minister. I'm grateful for your efforts. I should also inform you that your research during this incident has attracted considerable attention. The navigation techniques you've developed in collaboration with Captain Vex represent a significant breakthrough in human-Altarian scientific cooperation. There will be opportunities waiting for you. After the transmission ended, Zara and Theron floated in silence, the weight of impending separation settling between them like a physical presence. Scientific cooperation, Zara said finally. That's all this is to them. What is it to you? Theron asked. Zara looked at him, at the being who had shown her wonders beyond imagination, who listened to her theories with genuine interest, whose presence made the vast emptiness of space feel like home. Everything, she whispered. It's everything. And as they drifted among the stars, neither knowing what tomorrow would bring, the ship around them hummed a harmony that had never existed before, a song that belonged neither to human nor Altarian tradition, but to something entirely new. The morning of reckoning arrived with the soft chime of proximity alarms. Zara woke in the crystalline alcove that had become her sanctuary, surrounded by the gentle hum of Altarian technology that had learned to sing her to sleep. For a moment, she allowed herself to imagine this was just another day aboard Theron's ship, another day of discovery and connection. Then reality crashed in with the weight of an imploding star. Zara. Theron's voice came through the ship's communication system, carefully neutral, but unable to hide the underlying pain. The diplomatic vessels have arrived. She dressed carefully in the clothes the ship had fabricated for her, a flowing garment that seemed woven from captured starlight, beautiful enough to make her feel like she belonged in this world of wonders. One last gift from a ship that had somehow learned to love her. The docking bay was larger than she'd expected, filled with bioluminescent panels that pulsed in complex patterns. Theron stood at the center, no longer the warm companion of the past week, but every inch the formal Altarian captain. Only his eyes betrayed his true feelings, depths of starlight that held all the words they couldn't say. Beside him stood Ambassador Kess, her expression carefully diplomatic, but not unkind. And approaching through the airlock came two figures that made Zara's heart sink with finality. The first was Minister Chon Torres, exactly as imposing in person as she had been in hologram. The second was a man Zara recognized with a mixture of joy and dread, Professor Marcus Webb, her mentor from the research station, whose presence here could only mean one thing. Professor Webb, she said as he approached, noting the concern in his weathered features. What are you doing here? Making sure you're all right, he replied, pulling her into a paternal hug that made her throat tight with unshed tears. When we lost your signal during the storm, we feared the worst. Then to discover you were aboard an Altarian vessel ... He studied her face carefully. You look well. Different, but well. I am well, Zara said, glancing involuntarily at Theron. More than well. Professor Webb's eyes followed her gaze, and she saw understanding dawn in his expression. I see, he said quietly. Minister Chon Torres stepped forward, her demeanor professionally brisk. Miss Nightwind, while we're relieved to find you safe, we need to discuss the implications of your extended stay. The research you've conducted with Captain Vex has created unprecedented opportunities for human Altarian scientific cooperation. What kind of opportunities? Zara asked, though part of her already suspected. A formal exchange program, the minister continued. Earth's top astrophysicists working alongside Altarian quantum theorists. You'd be the perfect liaison, the only human who has successfully interfaced with their navigation technology. Kess stepped forward. The Altarian Science Council is indeed interested in such a program. Your insights into gravitational wave mechanics could advance our understanding by decades. But, Professor Webb added gently, it would require you to return to Earth immediately. There are protocols to establish, committees to brief, funding to secure. The bureaucratic process alone could take months. Zara felt the walls of duty and responsibility closing in around her. She looked at Theron, seeing her own desperation reflected in his starlight eyes. What if, she said carefully, I stayed aboard this ship while the negotiations proceed? Continue the research that's already showing such promising results? The silence that followed was deafening. Minister Chun Torres exchanged glances with Ambassador Kess, both women's expressions carefully neutral. "Miss Nightwind," Cass said finally, "while we appreciate your dedication to scientific advancement, extended cohabitation between our species raises ... concerns." "What kind of concerns?" Zara asked, though she suspected she knew. "Cultural contamination," Minister Chun-Torres said bluntly. "Our xenopsychologists are worried about the effects of prolonged exposure to Altairian quantum fields on human neural patterns. And frankly, there are questions about your current objectivity." "My objectivity?" Professor Webb stepped closer, his voice gentle but firm. "Zara, we've reviewed the data transmissions from Captain Vex's ship. The work you've done together is remarkable, but it shows signs of unprecedented neural synchronization between human and Altairian thought patterns. Our scientists are concerned about long-term effects on your cognitive function. They think I'm losing my mind." Zara translated flatly. "They think you're developing an unhealthy attachment that could compromise both your research and your well-being." Minister Chun-Torres corrected. "The safest course is immediate return to Earth for medical evaluation." "I don't need medical evaluation," Zara protested. "I need?" She stopped, unable to finish the sentence without revealing too much. "What do you need?" Professor Webb asked gently. Zara looked around the docking bay, at the humans who wanted to take her home, at the Altairians bound by laws older than civilizations, at Theron, who stood silent as a monument to duty. What she needed was impossible, forbidden, potentially catastrophic for both their species. "I need time," she said finally. "Time to understand what we've discovered. Time to see where this research leads." "The research can continue," Cass assured her, "through proper channels, with appropriate safeguards. Captain Vex's findings will be shared with human scientists, and your insights will inform Altairian quantum theorists. Separately," Zara said, the word bitter on her tongue. "Safely," Minister Chun-Torres corrected. Before anyone could respond, the ship's systems suddenly flared to life around them. Bioluminescent panels pulsed in rapid succession, and a harmonic vibration filled the air. Urgent, almost distressed. "What's happening?" Professor Webb asked, looking around in alarm. Theron moved to a wall interface, his hands dancing across the controls. His expression grew increasingly concerned as data streamed past. "Long-range sensors are detecting an anomaly. A massive gravitational distortion approaching this sector." "What kind of distortion?" Zara asked, moving to his side without conscious thought. The moment her fingers joined his on the interface, the ship's distress signals calmed, replaced by a flood of complex data. "It's artificial," she breathed, analyzing the readings. "Someone is manipulating space-time itself." "That's impossible," Minister Chun-Torres said. "No known species has that level of technology." "Unknown species often have unknown technologies," Cass observed grimly. "How long until it reaches us?" 6 hours, Theron replied. "Maybe less if it accelerates." "We need to leave," Professor Webb said firmly. "All of us. Immediately. The diplomatic vessels don't have the speed to outrun a space-time distortion," Zara said, her mind racing through calculations. "And if this thing is as powerful as the sensors suggest, it could affect a region spanning several light years." "Then what do you suggest?" Cass asked. Zara looked at Theron, seeing her own realization reflected in his eyes. "We need to work together. Human intuition and Altairian quantum sensitivity combined through the ship's navigation network. It's the only way to find a path through whatever's coming." "Absolutely not," Minister Chun-Torres said immediately. "The risk to your neural integrity, the risk to everyone's survival is greater," Zara interrupted. "This ship responds to both of us working together in ways that neither species has achieved alone. If we're going to save everyone, we need to use that connection." "The young woman is correct," came a new voice. Everyone turned to see a holographic figure materializing, an elderly, Altairian with silver-white hair and robes that seemed to contain actual stars. I am Science Counselor Ven Starweaver. Our long-range observatories confirm the approaching anomaly represents an extinction-level threat to all vessels in this region. Counselor, Kess bowed formally. What are your orders? Survival, the counselor replied simply. By any means necessary. If the human and Captain Vex have developed a functional interface that can navigate space-time distortions, then they must use it. But the Codex of Separation, Kess began, will be irrelevant if we're all dead. Starweaver said dryly. Sometimes, my dear ambassador, survival requires us to write new rules. Professor Webb stepped forward. If Zara is going to interface with alien technology under extreme conditions, I want to monitor her biological responses. As her mentor and as a xenobiologist. And I'll coordinate with the diplomatic vessels. Minister Sean Torres added, her pragmatism overriding her previous objections. If we're going to break protocols, we might as well do it officially. Kess looked between the humans and her brother, something shifting in her expression. Very well, but I'm staying aboard to observe the process. If this connection between species is going to rewrite our understanding of interspecies interaction, the diplomatic corps needs first-hand data. Theron moved closer to Zara, close enough that she could see the swirl of actual starlight in his eyes. Are you ready for this? No, she admitted, but I'd rather face the unknown with you than safety without you. The next few hours passed in a blur of preparation. The ship's central navigation chamber was reconfigured to accommodate human monitoring equipment, while Altarian quantum resonance amplifiers were calibrated to human neural patterns. Professor Webb attached biosensors to Zara's temples, monitoring her brain activity with the dedication of a worried father. The anomaly is accelerating. Theron reported from the primary controls. Impact in 90 minutes. Define impact. Minister Shuntoris requested from her position, coordinating with the human diplomatic vessels. Space-time in this region will become so distorted that normal navigation becomes impossible. Zara explained, her hands moving across the Altarian interface with increasing confidence. Ships could end up anywhere, or anyone. The only way through is to ride the distortion itself, like surfing a temporal wave. That sounds terrifyingly dangerous, Professor Webb observed. It is, Theron agreed. But the alternative is being trapped in a region of space where the laws of physics no longer function normally. Zara, Kess said quietly, are you certain about this? The neural stress of interfacing with our systems under these conditions could cause permanent changes to your brain structure. Zara looked around at the faces surrounding her, human and Altarian, all depending on a connection that shouldn't exist, but had somehow become their only hope of survival. Some changes are worth making, she said simply. She placed her hands on the navigation controls, feeling the familiar resonance as Theron's fingers joined hers. But this time, instead of the gentle harmony they'd experienced before, power flowed between them like liquid lightning. The ship's entire network opened to her consciousness, and she felt herself expanding beyond the boundaries of her human mind. Through Theron's quantum sensitivity, she could perceive the approaching distortion, a massive twist in the fabric of reality that pulsed with malevolent intelligence. But she could also see the patterns within the chaos, the mathematical elegance that governed even the most destructive forces. It's beautiful, she whispered, her awareness stretching across light years. Terrible and beautiful. Zara, your neural activity is off the charts, Professor Webb called out, alarm in his voice. Heart rate elevated, brain waves showing unprecedented synchronization patterns. I'm fine, she said, though her voice sounded strange to her own ears. More than fine. I can see ... everything. Through the ship's sensors, she felt the 3 diplomatic vessels struggling to keep pace as space-time began to warp around them. Through Theron's connection to the quantum field, she sensed the terror of the crews as reality itself became unreliable. "Beginning navigational sequence," Theron announced, his voice tight with concentration. Together, they dove into the heart of the distortion. Reality twisted around them like a kaleidoscope made of stars, and Zara felt her consciousness expand beyond anything she had imagined possible. She was the ship, she was the stars, she was the mathematics that governed the dance of galaxies. But at the center of it all, she was still herself, and she was still connected to Theron. "The diplomatic vessels are falling behind," Kess reported, her voice tense. "They can't maintain course stability in these conditions." Without conscious thought, Zara reached out through the ship's network, extending protective fields around the human and Altarian vessels. She felt their relief as space-time stabilized around them, their grateful astonishment as they found themselves riding smoothly through chaos. "How is she doing that?" Minister Torres demanded. "She's not," Professor Webb replied, staring at his instruments in amazement. "They are. The neural synchronization between Zara and Captain Vex has created a collective intelligence that exceeds the sum of its parts." "Emergence," Kess breathed. "We're witnessing true neural emergence between species." The journey through the distortion lasted 3 hours, though time itself became meaningless in the warped space-time around them. When they finally emerged into normal space, Zara collapsed against the navigation controls, her human physiology overwhelmed by what she had experienced. "Zara." Theron caught her as she swayed, his concern overriding all protocol. "Are you all right?" She looked up at him, seeing her own wonder reflected in his starlight eyes. "Did you feel it? The way our minds connected? We weren't human or Altarian anymore. We were something new." "The biometric readings are remarkable," Professor Webb said, reviewing his data with scientific fascination, overriding his previous concerns. "Not only did Zara suffer no neural damage, her brain appears to have developed new neural pathways, one specifically adapted for quantum field interaction." "And Captain Vex?" Kess asked. Theron touched his temple, his expression wondering. "I can still feel the mathematical framework Zara showed me. Human intuitive logic integrated with Altarian quantum sensitivity. It's extraordinary." Counselor Starweaver's hologram reappeared, his expression grave but respectful. "What we have witnessed today changes everything. You have proven that the barriers between species are not absolute. The connection can create capabilities neither species possesses alone. What does this mean?" Zara asked, though she was afraid she already knew. "It means," Kess said slowly, "that the Codex of Separation may need to be reconsidered, at least for cases of confirmed neural compatibility. And it means," Minister Torres added, "that the proposed scientific exchange program just became humanity's top diplomatic priority." Professor Webb approached. Zara, his expression mixing pride with concern. "My dear, you've just become the most important person in human-Altarian relations. Both species are going to want to study you, learn from you, possibly ... double quotes. Possibly what? Possibly separate you to ensure they maintain control over this new capability." The weight of implication settled over the room like a shroud. Zara looked at Theron, seeing her own realization in his eyes. What they had discovered could bring their species together, or tear them apart as each side tried to claim the advantage. "There is another option," Theron said quietly, "one that protects both the discovery and the individuals who made it possible." "What option?" Kess asked. Theron looked directly at his sister, his expression resolute. "Joint custody. A new class of citizenship that acknowledges neural bonded pairs as belonging to both species equally. That would require rewriting fundamental laws," Kess said. "Then we rewrite them," came Starweaver's voice. "Evolution demands adaptation, even for civilizations." Minister Torres stepped forward. "Earth would need extensive negotiations, committees, years of bureaucratic process. dot dot dot. Or, Professor Webb said thoughtfully, we could recognize that some discoveries transcend bureaucracy. Zara is my student, and I can confirm that her neural integration with Altarian technology represents a breakthrough that benefits both species. Are you suggesting we authorize this? Relationship? Minister Chun Torres asked. I'm suggesting we authorize this evolution, Professor Webb replied. Because whether we like it or not, it's already happened. As the various officials debated the implications, Zara and Theron stood together in the center of the storm they had created. The ship hummed around them, its bioluminescent patterns forming new configurations that belonged neither to human nor Altarian tradition. What happens now? Zara asked. Now, Theron said, taking her hand and feeling the familiar resonance flow between them. We find out if love can change the galaxy. Outside the ship's transparent walls, the stars wheeled in their ancient dance, indifferent to the boundaries that thinking beings drew between themselves. But somewhere in the quantum foam that connected all things, new harmonies were being born, songs that spoke of connection beyond species, of love beyond law, of a future written in the spaces between the stars. The universe, it seemed, was ready for something unprecedented. The question was, were they?